All right, welcome back, everybody, to a very special episode of the Clear the Ice, the Flyers postgame program here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B on the call. But you know what? I'm joined by the majority of the Clear the Ice crew today. Gobbler and Austin are joining me, and we're doing a special mid-season review, check-in, look ahead, overall grading system, however you like to kind of keep that straight in your own mind. We're going to talk Flyers today. We're going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to talk about how they did in this first half, and then certain things that they will do going forward into the second half or the remaining 32 games of the season. Gentlemen, Gobbler, how you doing? We haven't talked in a while. It's been 9-10 days since the Flyers have played, but how you doing?
Good. You know what? It's breath freshening when you can talk with some knowledgeable men like you're among yourselves, Matt and Austin, because what I deal with every Sunday morning trying to talk Flyers puck, it's like going through the root canal process with Al and Mike. So, but all serious note, I mean, look, I'm ready to talk some Flyers hockey. It's just a good, surprising year for most Flyer fans to be relevant and being ahead of schedule. And I think a lot of Flyer fans are surprisingly happy with their hockey team right now. Yeah, so I mean, those guys. I mean, like I said, the Flyers are
sorry about that. Way to kind of throw the other two members of Clear the Ice crew under the bus there, Pat. But Pat or Al and Mike are not present today. They had other things come up, and Godspeed to them as they're dealing with some issues today.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, Austin, same thing. How you doing? And I know it's been a minute. We never worked together. I mean,
not yet.
I know that's going to change here soon, but we never worked together. So so far so good, Austin. I think I've watched your stuff on the Clear the Ice. You're doing great. But how you been?
I'm doing good. Just caffeinating up a little bit. Just slept a bit like trash last night, but I'm doing all right. Like Pat said, good to get a bit of a breath of fresh air with this time off from some Flyers hockey. The All-Star game was a pretty fun time from the stuff that I saw of it, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the second half of the season and hope that Flyers can get themselves off of this bit of a schneid that they're on right now with this small little losing streak.
And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all that. Of course, we have 32 more games to play before the season's over. And boys, I'm going to start off with a softball question, or maybe it's not. I'll see how you guys handle this, but I'm going to go to Austin first. Austin, if the Flyers, who are currently sitting in third place in the Metropolitan Division and fifth place in the Eastern Conference, if the Flyers do not make the playoffs, do you consider this season a failure?
I wouldn't consider it a failure because I feel like the expectations were like extremely low for these guys going into the year. So, to be where you are currently in your division and the conference, and at the point right now, be sitting on the doorstep of a playoff spot, it's way better than anyone was truly expecting. So I don't see it as a complete failure. I mean, sure, you don't make the playoffs, it definitely sucks, but I wouldn't see it as a failure, to be 100% honest with you.
Yeah, I know. And obviously the big story in town has been the rebuild and losing sight of that. And what do the playoffs mean in terms of the rebuild? Should you still kind of cast your net out towards a rebuild, or should you be all in for the playoffs? Gobbler, same question. If the season were to end and the Flyers did not make the playoffs, is this a failure in your eyes?
Yes. And the reason why I have is, yes, the reason is why is because if this team was a bottom feeder up until now, I would have said, okay, fine. But the fact that I just been getting teased all the way up to this point that you're in playoff mode, you're a playoff team. To see it crumble away, to see it get washed away by the wayside, would be hurt something for me. Because not every year is guaranteed. We could talk about prospects to the cows come home, but prospects are not always guaranteed to pan out. So what you have now, to me, is you have to make a move. And if you make it to the playoffs, especially in hockey, you don't know. It's that team that doesn't look like they're going to make any kind of noise that usually makes the most noise in the NHL playoffs. And I feel like this team now, sitting fifth, sixth place right now in the conference. Listen, you're ahead of schedule. I had a feeling from the get-go this team was going to tread this way, just because John Tortorella got rid of the pieces that he didn't want on this team anymore, and now he's working with guys who are listening to him and want to trend in that direction. And look, it's all turning up until recently, but yeah, it's all been heading into the right way.
So I'm going to answer that question too. I absolutely think that the season would not be a failure if they made the playoffs, because I would personally not be all in. And we're going to get to this here in a minute about the trade deadline. I would be personally not in if we went all in for the playoff run, because it's not, to me, it's never, and this goes to all four of the sports teams here in this town. It's never been about making the playoffs for me. It's always about winning the hardware, the big one. And the Flyers are no closer to winning a Stanley Cup this year than they were last. And that's just the hardcore reality of the situation. They do not match up well against any of the elite teams in the NHL. They would not survive the first round, because right now I mentioned, or I don't know if I mentioned or not, but it would be Tampa in the first round right now if the season were to end today. They're not going to survive in a 7-game series against the Lightning. There's just no way. They don't have the horses. That doesn't mean that they won't have the horses here soon. But if I'm going to go ahead and go all in, I'm going to be going all in because I think I have a legit shot at winning the cup. Boys, Stanley Cup mythology aside, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of this, and you probably already know this, but I'm going to fill you in anyway. I know for those out there who are watching, I'm going to fill you in too. This summer, in June, when the new Stanley Cup champion grabs that cup, it won't be the Flyers, and they skate around the arena and they drink champagne, fruit juice, whatever it is they drink out of it, and they take it home for the summer. They enjoy it, pass it around with their family and friends, bring it back to their facility in the fall, give it back to the league. They take it back to Toronto. They're going to put a plate of that team's name on the Stanley Cup. Well, they got to take one off in order to fit it on the cup. Do you know whose plate's coming off this year? I'm going to give you a hint. It's a team that resides here in this town. The 73-74 Flyer Stanley Cup championship plate is coming off that cup this year. So that leaves us with one team left on the cup. And next June, when the process repeats itself, guess whose plate's coming off that year? 74-75 Flyers. So in about one and a half calendar years from now, the Flyers will have no more representation on the Stanley Cup. And unfortunately, that's and we're no closer to that right now than we were last year. So to me, that's what it's all about. And I'm not prepared to go all in on a great story so far, but not legitimate cup contending.
That's fair enough. So for again, for me, like I said, they were putting away the Kings, the Ducks in the early part of the season when they were playing okay hockey, those Western teams, and they were putting them away. I got teased a little bit, but hindsight, like you said, Matt, though, when they were matched up against the Eastern Conference teams, though, in the first half against the Rangers, against the Hurricanes, and they were losing. And that's all you play when it comes to Eastern Conference hockey. Is you're going to play the best of the best in the East Coast. So, yeah, it would be a tough. It's going to be tough to tread water for beating, like you said, beating a Tampa team 4 straight. But I've seen crazier things, so I guess I'm wearing the orange and black sunglasses and hoping for the best.
Pat, I am not downplaying your stand. If you think that this is what they should do, would it be a shot in the arm? Austin, let me ask you this. Would it be a shot in the arm if the Flyers made it to the playoffs? Maybe they go in somewhat half all in, and they make a couple major trades, couple decent trades, right? They bring in a Johnny Hockey, or they bring in an expiring contract, which I don't think they should do anyway. No expiring contracts. We got to build, but say they do that. And they make a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, how, Austin, in the long run, how does that affect the team going forward? And say they don't get past the Eastern Conference Finals. How does that affect the team going forward? I mean, is that a good thing, a positive thing?
Honestly, I personally would take a ton of positives from that because, like I said, the expectations were extremely low for this team going into this season after where they finished last year, and to have that quick of a turnaround to be able to see your team make it to a step before the Stanley Cup Finals is incredibly impressive. Especially when you look at the crew of guys that we have. The most experienced guy that we have on the team is Mark Stahl, and he's not even really playing like that often. So, I mean, I feel like just looking at this roster, the guys that we have on this team, a lot of young talent to be able to, if they do make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, that's a huge confidence boost for a lot of these guys.
What are you prepared to mortgage for it, though?
I don't even know now because honestly, the chip that I had for the most part was Carter Hart. So yes. with everything that's happening with him now, there isn't really much that I would be willing to mortgage personally.
There's no more chip there.
Yeah, because the next big piece that you have would be Konechny and Farabee, and I'm not willing to give up either one of them.
And that's my point. Not that the Flyers shouldn't do it, is that I just don't think the Flyers are in a position to do it. They don't have the fundamentals of the foundation of a dominant Stanley Cup contending team. They don't have a franchise player. They're missing key components along the rest of the roster. And now we got goaltending an issue right now. I just think staying the course for whatever that is for now is the best thing. And we're gonna break this all down. I don't want to get too bogged down with this. And Joe says, do we think the Flyers make a trade? Joe, we're gonna address that here in a minute. But first we do that, I want to remind everybody out there that this show is brought to you in part by the good folks down there at Dolan's on 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park for Quizzo, music, great times, and memorabilia giveaways. Go to Dolan's because you never know who might fall in through the front door. So, head down to Dolan's. Say hi to PJ. I heard mention of the gritty this morning. Is that Al said he was going to bring it into the studio for you guys some morning? Is that correct?
Yeah, he said he's going to bring in the gritty cheesesteak. So I'm curious to know what that looks like, and I'm ready to take that in.
That's I hear it's a mix between a cheesesteak. It's got cheesesteak in it, and it's got scrapple in it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you
the gobblers at the mouth already.
I don't know. You better bring one of those. You better bring a defibrillator with you too.
True.
Man.
True.
All right, let's get into breaking some of this stuff down. We are 50 games into the season, and the Flyers find themselves in a precarious position. As I've already mentioned, they are currently a playoff team at 25, 19, and 6, 56 points, third in the Metro, and fifth in the Eastern Conference. And we're going to look back on some of the things that we're going to kind of evaluate. We can do a grading system if you like, that's fine, but we're going to evaluate some of the things that have led them to this point. And I want to hear your examples or your why you think that. But let's start with the front office, because to me, going into the season, the biggest question about this organization was not the product on the ice. It was the product on the front office, because we had totally unknown about what that was going to be like. Danny Briere took over as permanent GM, and then Keith, don't call me a radio talk show host anymore, Jones, is taking over as the Flyers president of hockey operations, trying to not only rebuild the product on the ice, but let's face it, man, rebuild the product off the ice, because the Flyers as an organization had fallen from the heavens and were considered so much of a joke around this league now. And not to mention the Carter Hart drama, the Cutter Gauthier drama that was also occurring behind the scenes that we didn't know about at the time. So all this they were going and dealing with, and then they had disgruntled players they had to move. Just a lot of things going on. They bring back the burnt orange uniforms. They bring back the dual logos at center ice at the Wells Fargo Center. They put a new emphasis on alumni weekend and honoring the team's past. And then they deal with all this other stuff. I'll go with Austin first. Austin, how do you assess the front office's approach and performance throughout the first half of a first-year rebuild?
I mean, so far, if I were to grade it, I would probably give it somewhere in the realm of like a B- to B+. I mean, they handled the Cutter Gauthier situation as best as they could. They were ready to try and get this guy to come up, start getting him set up for, making his way into the pro game. And he just straight up said no to Philadelphia. So they were like, well, you say no, then you can just go somewhere else. It's totally fine. And, decent return on that. I mean, probably could have got like Keith Jones said pregame after the trade happened. There was no better time to move him than now, because his stock was only going to get worse as news came out about this. So getting that move done as soon as you possibly could was paramount in being able to get a decent yield back for him. And aside from that, the way they've helped sort of structure this team out going into this season, helping to really instill the confidence in the play style of John Tortorella, what he wants to do with this team going forward. They've put a lot, they've handed many keys over to Tortorella to let him really do a lot of getting this team prepared for this season and helping to instill a new level of confidence in a lot of these younger guys. And they've knocked it out of the park so far.
Gobbler?
Same. I'm going to give it an A. Just the fact that the way Danny Briere came in here, again, exposing those old Flyer names who ran this organization into the ground for so many years. You kind of took this panel into a different aspect, saying, no, this ain't going to be your typical Flyers hockey route, drama that you guys are used to. And same for Keith Jones. I mean, again, everyone wants to talk as this goofy radio guy and what's he going to bring to the table? Well, the both of them that sit in the front office have stacked themselves alongside with some great hockey minds like the John LeClairs and such. And even though Bush is there just to call the games, I'm pretty sure he's around that front office, feeding his, his knowledge on the team as well. And for Danny Barrera, again, when that trade went down in the first period, at the top of the game, during the game, for him to just walk right out there to the media, and just go right for him and answer it and handle everything in a professional manner. And say, you know what, I tried to call Gante. I called him, a few times. He wasn't picking up his phone. He obviously just doesn't want to be here no more. It's going to be tough for him to wear that orange and black uniform if he ever wants to put it on. We'll be okay moving forward. And then this Carter Hart situation took place. And again, just address it as a professional. And I get it. The team looks like it's took the effect of not having him around. But I assure you that Keith Jones and Danny Barrera will find and make some kind of adjustments to where this team can be back to where they are, and trying to get things under wraps. So yeah, from the front office perspective and getting this team a little bit ahead of schedule and playing the way that they are playing, and like I said, majority of the fans wasn't expecting this kind of year from them. So you have to give them what the credit's due. I got to give this front office an A+.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give an A as well, because I cannot really downplay the fact that it wasn't just the on-the-ice product that they had to kind of organize and reassemble. It was the off-the-ice persona of the organization. Things had fallen so far off the wayside. Obviously Dan Hilferty coming in helped as well. The new era of orange. I mean, but that, and it's only been a couple of things that I have seen. And of course, I'm sure there's a bunch going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, but just the early returns on the aesthetics and the relationship with the fans. I mean, again, the burnt orange uniforms, the dual logos, those are huge to old Flyer fans that have lost their way, and they're out completely on the organization. And then you mentioned the Cutter Gauthier, and you mentioned the Carter Hart stuff, and you mentioned the Kevin Hayes, Ivan Provorov, trying to make trades, try to get this team where it needs to be, keeping an eye on development talent down in Lehigh, keeping an eye on all the players that are half a world away in Russia trying to develop. The Michkov stuff and all that. I mean, it's been a Herculean task to ask for any established front office, let alone a group that's just really coming in for the first year. So just on that, I give them an A. And then to mention the product on the ice is pretty good too. So I'm going to give them an A as well. So that's how I feel too.
And think about it too. I mean, really, they get away. They bring in a bunch of replacement players, no-name guys, right? They bring in Sean Walker. Who is he? What's this guy capable of? What and then you check his stats before him coming to the Flyers, and it's not mind-boggling. It's not catching your eyebrow. But yet they Dave Barrera and Keith Jones have put together, a roster that didn't look like they're going to win on paper. It looked like they were meant to be at the basement of the NHL, and yet here they are. So, yeah, I piggyback with you, Matt. A+.
Yeah, two of our biggest moves in the offseason were Garnet Hathaway and Mark Stahl coming into the season. So they're definitely not moves that you write back home about, but they're enough to help this team get moving forward. I mean, Sean Walker's been amazing this year. Him and Ryan Poehling both have been like my unsung heroes of this team for this season.
And they just re-signed Ryan Poehling to a 2-year contract extension. So there's obviously something there. So absolutely. Yeah. I mean, is there 1,000 more things to do? Is there a lot more work to be accomplished? Absolutely. But when you're tearing this house down, and I mean everything to include the foundation, and you're starting from scratch, this is definitely a good way to begin. So good. So far, so good for the front office. Now let's head down to the ice to the coaching. John Tortorella's second year here. I'm not going to dwell too much on what Tortorella has done in the past, but I want to focus more on what he's done this year with this group of players, trying to kind of get something from nothing at certain aspects. This team has adopted John Tortorella's, and that's what I think for me, it stops with the buy-in aspect of what Tortorella has been doing here. Kevin Hayes and Ivan Provorov were obviously not bought in, and it was causing some issues in that locker room, and it was causing some issues on the ice. Well, they're gone. They weren't adequately replaced either, but they were, because now there's a complete buy-in. So definitely an addition by subtraction type situation here for this team, as well as far as getting in sync with the coach. But this team has blocked 900 shots. They have blocked 900 shots as a team through 50 games. That's crazy. You don't do that because that's what you're supposed to do. No, you do that because you believe in what your coach is trying to tell you to do. I'm not going to stand in front of a puck 900 times through 50 games for you if I don't believe in you. Are you crazy? But no, the buy-in aspect of what Tortorella has instilled in these players, to me, definitely gives me a warm and fuzzy. I'm going to give Tortorella an A. Galber, how do you think Tortorella's done?
You know what? When he first was signed here, me and Mike Lauer looked at this was going to be the biggest mistake again. We were just expecting the worst. But when you listen to John Tortorella when he first got here, and one of the things he keyed on was changing the culture in that Flyers locker room. Just the whole Ball Street Bowl, the whole mindset that was going in that locker room, the whole thing, and he did, and he's changed his team around. And now, like you said, you're getting guys who are taking significant shots for him. He sounds like he's a matured head coach. Where at times he gets snippy when they lose. Of course, that's John for you, but he's matured and he's really found he's getting guys to work for him. And like I said, the most important thing is he's getting the team to believe in his message. I mean, for a team to take shots like that, obviously he's building from defense on out. So he's done a phenomenal job up until this point. Again, getting the team ahead of schedule, and for what the tools he's got, trying to put a Ferrari together, he's done an okay job for me. So I got to give him an A as well.
Austin?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys with an A. Just like Pat was saying, how he and Mike were feeling when Tortorella was first signed, I was on that same boat, and I think I was the one that was vehemently captaining that ship. So I was livid. I was like, this guy is his coaching style is draconic. Like he shouldn't be coaching in the NHL. He hasn't had success in over 20 years. He has proven me so wrong this season, and I've bought it. Like you not only do you need to get the team to buy in, but you at some point have to get the fan base to buy in. And I am 100% in at this point. Like he is like the blend of like whatever he did with the guys that were willing to buy in, and then the front office like moving away from the guys that didn't want to buy in, has helped this team essentially get a breath of new life. And I am all about it. I mean, Travis Sanheim's being the workhorse for your team on defense. Him and Cam York both averaging at minimum 22 minutes of ice time a game. So, I mean, and like you said, blocking almost 900 shots through 52 games, like it's outrageous how much this team is just all about this as they've been saying as their catchline, this new era of orange. I mean, it's exactly what you wanted to see Philadelphia do going into this season, and they've done that and more, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. Now, of course, there's a little context to this. Tortorella does have a shelf life that's been proven over and over and over again, and I'm not certain where that shelf life is. He's been given and I don't know if this is the same. I don't think it's the same way in hockey as it is in football or basketball or baseball, but he's been given the vote of confidence from Danny Briere by saying, he's going to be here for a while. And I think that's the right move, but there will come a day where this team will get to a certain level and they won't listen to him anymore. And there's going to have to be a new voice, but that's going to happen to all of them eventually. But for now and for the immediate future, I'm definitely in for Tortorella.
Yeah. And with that being said too, Matt, like he himself, he said, look, I might not even be here when this team starts getting great. So, but he said, I'm definitely here to do one thing, and that is to turn that culture around. So, I mean, he made it. He kind of gave himself an expiration date, and you see, but he said definitely he had one thing in mind, is just to change his team. He said it's just so fun. He doesn't look the second year, right? He had to label a captain. So, I mean, again, all that ego stuff is out the window with the guy.
Yeah, and they're still balling out for him, and there's no captain. I agree. That's huge. So, and what's your point about him not being here? Maybe not behind the bench, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed in the organization in some way. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
At this stage of his life and career, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
No, I always made the old Flyers joke. I said, once you become a Flyer, you are a Flyer for life. I mean, they got your tombstone written somewhere up in the suite somewhere. I mean, you are here, whether it's here. I mean, working for the community, you are here for life.
Yeah.
And I mean with the level of tenacity that Tortorella brings behind the bench to be able to have that transition into potentially say a front office role would honestly I feel like it would be great. He could help out Keith Jones with the player development side. I mean I feel like that would be perfect for him going forward if he decides to hang it up coaching.
Absolutely, or make him the GM of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. All right, boys. Let's now transition to the offense. My grading system goes kind of off a cliff here, but so far through 50 games, this offense has generated 144 goals, which averages out to about 2.8 goals a game. Boys, less than 3 goals a game in the NHL just ain't going to cut it for me, and it's not going to win you many championships. They got to score more. They don't have that showcase player. They don't have that guy. They got a bunch of supporting guys, a bunch of guys that are definitely rounding into that supporting star role, but there is no franchise player. Players like Konechny, Tippett, Farabee, and Forrester, they've accounted for 66 goals of the 144 that the Flyers have scored. So there's supporting roles there, but there's holes along the offense. And I want to go to Austin here. Offensively, where do you see this team so far through 50 games?
I have them at exactly where they're ranked. They have I believe it's a -1 in their overall goal differential. Yeah, 147 for 148 against. So I mean, even though this is a revamp for this team, they definitely are still. I want to say at least another season and a half, 2 seasons off from seeing that full potential finally hit. Like I said, a lot of young guys on this roster. Joel Farabee, Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, Tyson Forrester, Bobby Brink. Like a lot of these guys, they still need time to really develop and find their game completely. And to only be down 1 on your goal differential with such a young, I can't even really say inexperienced team because they've been playing a lot. To have it be a team that is, I believe it was a year and a half under the league average.
Yeah.
For their overall age, it's still incredibly impressive. You would have expected this team to be getting blown out every single time they set foot on the ice, and a lot of their games they're putting up fights. I mean, that game against Colorado, a week and a half before the All-Star break, they scratched and clawed and fought as hard as they could to try and keep themselves in that game. It's just Colorado was just too much to handle. Like this team's going out there and trying their best to put forth a solid effort every single night. And I mean, the last 3 games don't really show it, but they've been putting together some really solid, very entertaining games. And I mean, and like I said, to only be down 1 in your goal differential is extremely impressive.
But in order to be a legit Stanley Cup champion, there has to be a better differential between goals scored and goals given up. There definitely has to be. Now, offensively, they're averaging, or they've accumulated like over almost 1,700 shots on net. That's averaged about 35 a game.
Yeah.
So they're generating the offense. They just can't finish it, and that's where high end talent comes in because they can't finish. And obviously, it's more on the power play than anything else. But Gobbler, offensively, where do you see this team?
If you're going to give a grade, that would be, I would probably have to give it I would have to give it a B minus, C plus in that range. You mentioned about, you're averaging 2 goals a game. One of the gray areas of this team is the power play. It's weird that the fact that the second year in a row they look very strong on the shorthanded goals than they do on power play goals. But yeah, to me, like I said, they just got figured. Like you said, it's a roster loaded with supporting cast trying to just have a standout guy. Again, Travis Konechny with 22 goals. Owen Tippett, Farabee close to 20 goals. Coming in on that. Sean Couturier at 10. So again, you have a couple of those guys, but that's like one of the major gray areas of this team is trying to generate offense. There's a few games where they exploded on teams. There's been games where they battled back, and of course, if the one against the Red Wings, where they were down like 5-2, and they've generated some offense, and that's one thing they're shooting for us. It's not pass. We saw the dump and chases. We've seen putt, pass, where they got overpass happy. So that's always come back to bite this team in the backside. So, but I do see this team though. it's just like I said, up until recently, where they looked like they've run out of gas. But I mean, other than that, I mean, they're getting reflective goals. They're always hanging from front of the net. They're making things happen out there. So I got to give this team, like I said, I know averagely they're averaging goals a game, but there's times they will explode on somebody and have some like high scoring.
Yeah, and for me, again, as I said this earlier, it kind of starts and ends with me with that firepower. You guys mentioned there's players that are, cooling off, and then other players heat up to kind of pick them up. And that's what a supporting cast does. It's those players that have the constant of offense that are supposed to feed off of that supporting cast. And you can't expect the supporting cast to consistently be hot. You really can't expect the franchise players to be consistently hot either. But it's got to be a yin and a yang. And right now, the Flyers got a yang, and they don't really have a yin. So they're playing well above what I thought they would based on what they had offensively. They're generating offense. They're just not finishing it. I got to give them a C, boys, on offense for my grades so far throughout this first 50 games. And until we address that star power thing, that's probably where the order of the day will be a C.
Yeah, C is totally fair.
Did Al hear a putt-putt? I didn't hear that. Did you say putt-putt?
No, I don't know what Al's talking about.
I did hear you say putt-putt, Pat.
Yeah, I think he wants to hear putt-putt. That's what he wants to hear.
Who's that guy in the picture? Is that Al from like 1985?
Yeah. That looks like Al from 1997. At Smash Mouth concert.
Wow, is that like senior year? Where'd he go? Archbishop Carroll? What crazy Delco suburban school did he go to? Yeah, or whatever. All right. Okay, so he says I say B minus. Al says B minus. All right. Awesome picture there, Al. Okay. All right, let's move on now to the defense. 900 shots blocked, averaging over 18 a game. They're not a tenacious man-to-man defense. They're not going to play that. They don't have that type of ability, but they do like to bounce back in the zone, collapse in the zone. They do win a lot of neutral zone battles. They're an outstanding transitional team from defense to offense, utilizing a lot of quick flip-type passes. I'm going to go to the Gobbler. Defensively, how do you see this team?
I like them. Again, they're playing teams tough. I mean, yet there's some times where they fall into a hole. And I don't know if you want to blame so much on the goaltending on that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I like the way they played. Again, they're stopping shots. They're learning how to turn the puck over on other teams. And they're, like I said, it's just been a breath of fresh air with how they stopped turn the puck over in the neutral zone, how get rebounds and all that stuff. So again, they're doing a fine job on defense, and I like the way they're trending.
So the Flyers are they're very much so a 21st century NHL defense. They're not the New Jersey Devils of the 90s or the late 90s, early 2000s. They're not bullish. They're not physical, but they are physical, but they're not that physical. They are very offensively minded as a defense. They're always looking for the transition, and that's that's his style. That's the way he runs a defense. Austin, same question. And how do you feel this defense has played up to this point and all that stuff?
Yeah, honestly, for a grade for the defense, I give them a B plus strictly because of the blocked shots. Because that's a big thing. The more shots that you block, the less that are getting in on your goaltenders, and the less you have to worry about potentially giving up goals. And the main person that I want to highlight here, actually, Mike Laro just brought him up, is Nick Seeler. Yeah. He's blocked 141 on his own.
It's amazing. That's incredible. That's not even. I don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah, it's insane. And then when you pair that with the fact that not only have we blocked 885 shots this year, we've had 843 hits this year too. Yeah. So not only are we being able to block shots, but we're also playing the puck and wiping guys off the puck extremely well this season. Another number for Seeler, aside from the 141 blocks, he has 65 hits. That's actually not too bad for him so far this year. The defensive point share is incredible for them so far. They've been, like we've said, they've been blocking shots almost on a extremely consistent basis. The second a guy goes to look at a lane for a shot, there's a guy there. There's a body in the way. So
it's a part of their defense. That's what their defensive makeup is: the block shots. It's not a extra thing. It's how they attack defense.
Yeah, and it's the perfect way to do it. And aside from that, a lot of the defense is staying fairly healthy too. I mean, you look at the top seven. There have been 7 players on this team that have played in all 50 games. 3 of them are defensemen. It's Nick Seeler, Sean Walker, and Cam York. All 3 of those guys have played all 50 games so far this year. The only one of them that's in a minus stat for the plus minus is Cam York, and he's at a minus 13. Right. Sealer and Walker alone carry those 3 back over to a plus. So I mean, that's more an offensive contribution, but still to have those kinds of numbers for your defense overall is extremely impressive. And again, a lot of young guys on that defensive core. Sealer out of those 3 is the oldest one at 30. So Cam York's 23, Sean Walker's 29. So you have plenty of time for at least 2 of those guys to continue to have solid defensive contributions throughout their NHL career. Sealer, you may get another year or 2 out of him before he decides to hang it up. But so far, I'm extremely impressed with this defense.
And they looked really good with the, like I said, the facing power plays. I mean, that's
special teams, that side of it. But as you mentioned, though, it's a 2-sided special teams coin, and let's get into that right now. On the power play. This has been a problem, not just this season. It's been a problem over the last 3 or 4 seasons. The Flyers are dreck. I mean, that's the best word I can say on the power play, dreck. They're operating at 13.4% this year. Since the 2021-22 season, we are 84 for 610 on the power play, which averages out to less than 14%. I attribute it to basically, we just don't, as I mentioned, we don't have that power. We don't have that star power. They cycle, they move the puck, they get shots on net. They can't finish the power play. Pat or Austin, power play wise, is this the biggest Achilles heel on this team right now?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not able to convert when you're up a man, you're basically playing against yourself at that point, because if you can't score when you have a 5-on-4 advantage, and you're letting these guys, you're letting these teams penalty kills just be able to just work you out. It's really tough to be able to, to increase that goals per game number. Like you said, just extremely horrendous numbers since 2020. And it's just been really rough to watch this team get a man advantage, because you already know what's going to happen. It's become pretty much a script at this point, where it's just going to be, like you said, cycle the puck around. Even though you see open lanes, and in your brain you're screaming, shoot the thing. What are you doing? You're just watching them try and find answers for too many questions on the power play.
Gobbler, same thing. Power play has seemed to be the anchor. I maintain if this power play was operating at 20%, I'm not asking for much, 20%. I mean, the NFL, I think the NHL average is like close to 30, or maybe 20, 25, 26, around there. But at 20%,
20.4.
That's the average. All right. So if they were operating on average, what, 7, 8 more wins, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe
Pat,
a whole other goal per game, possibly too.
Exactly. So Pat, what's the deal with the power play?
It's funny. It just goes back to square one. This is just loaded with supporting cast. I mean, if you had a legit goal scorer on this team, like the Ovechkins of the world, the Crosbys of the world, a star like that, this would be a no-brainer. But the fact that this team, it just, like Austin kind of said, there's more questions than answers of what to do with the puck when they have wide open lanes and not shooting when they're supposed to be shooting, or just thinking about the play first instead of just taking the opportunity and looking at the small detail kind of things when you have an open lane, taking a shot. Yeah, it's just and a lot of these guys are just missing their shots. The Scott Loftons of the world are not, finding the back of the net on power plays, all those kind of guys. TK, he's around 1 minute, next he's on back of a milk carton. So you have all those intangibles going into that on the power play. And it's really, again, these opposing defenses, they got tape on the Flyers and how they slow down the power play, and they figured it out. And again, it's just something. If I'm the Flyers right now, this is something I'm hoping that they've worked on throughout this whole All-Star break, is the work on power play units.
I don't know. There's much work they can do. I think it's just, again, it's what they are. They just don't have the horses in the farm or in the stables to really be better. I give them I jumped ahead. Let's go to the other side of special teams, which of course is the most night and day thing I've ever seen in my hockey life.
Yes.
You go from a power play that can't get out of its own way to the second best penalty kill in the National Hockey League. A team that's averaging, I believe, what they close to 86%.
Yeah,
In
85
killing,
nine.
and killing penalties. Not to mention, they got 10 shorthanded goals, which is up there near the league lead. How the hell are we going from a power play that Big Al, couldn't coach, because I know Al's a great coach, to a penalty kill that's on a different side of the planet? Pat, why? What's going on between the power play and the penalty kill?
I'm trying to figure it out, and I believe last year they led the NHL in shorthanded goals. So I mean, I don't know if this is a Torts thing at this point, but I mean, I don't know. It's like you said, it's one side you look really really ugly when you're supposed to be looking good, and the thing is, when you're really looking ugly, you look extremely good. And again, they figured it out. They have this is what makes their defense really, really spectacular, is because of the special teams defense and the way they can read an offense and where they want to go with the puck and how like they can force turnovers and go in the opposite direction. And if they find that breakaway guy only going the opposite way or whatever, they can pick apart and why not find the back of net? So I'm taking it's going to be a lot of pressure on the on that goaltender on the other side, because he's like, oh shoot, where now I got to be on my A game, because now I got to deal with I thought this was supposed to be easy from here on out, but no. The Flyers, I don't know. It's just a freak luck thing, but yet for 2 straight years, I don't know if I can call this luck anymore.
Yeah, that's probably what they are. Austin, again, why is the power play on one side of the moon and the penalty kills on the other side? Why can't we get more in the middle?
I feel like it has to do with the old adage of good defense creates good offense. You understand that you're down a man, so you have to be able to try and stop as much as you can from getting even close to the goal mount. And with the amount of block shots that we have, being able to have a guy put a body in front of it, have it take a good bounce off of them and just spring a guy loose, or even just a good pass breakup that happens to be in a spot where you get a decent passing lane to get a guy going forward on a nice rush. You're getting a lot of solid opportunity on the penalty kill. You're getting better looks on your penalty kill for goals than you are on your power play for goals, which is incredibly crazy to say, but I feel like it's just part of that defensive mentality that Torts has really instilled into these guys of, putting yourself on the line for a lot of shots, not feeling like you're at a disadvantage when you're down a man. And it just doesn't translate into the power play game because of the fact that you have to understand that, your offense is what has to carry you on the power play, where on the penalty kill, your defense is what carries you. And we have that defensive identity right now. And it's definitely showing in the special team stats for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Defensive identity is the reason why they are the way they are. I think on the penalty kill, they are they are offensively minded defensemen. Let's call it what they are. They are the only, I think, true defenseman on that team is Mark Stahl, and he don't play. And everybody else is an offensively minded defenseman. And Jamie Drysdale is a great addition to that group. They're filling lanes, they're jumping lanes, they're jumping passing lanes, consistently trying to force that turnover. They've perfected the old flip pass out of the zone to create those odd man rushes. They're living and dying by that, and it works for them because they're built that way. And I think that's more of a scheme than anything else. That's not luck. That's what Tortorella wants, and it's working for them right now on the PK. But with all that being said, guys, I want your grade for the special teams overall. Austin, what's your special teams grade?
If it wasn't for the horrendous power play, I probably would grade them a bit higher, but I have them at a C+ right now. Most of that grade is from the penalty kill. A vast majority of that grade is from all of that grade is from the penalty kill.
It's like you get 100 on your first test in school and you get a 0 on the next test, and it averages out to a 50, and that's just the way it is, Pat.
I agree. Give me a C. I mean, like you say, you get an F on power play, but yet you get an A+ on the shorthanded goal. Again, you're up there leading the league, one of the top teams in the league, and shorthanded goal. Give them a C.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with C as well. It would be an A+. Yeah, it'd be an A+ if the power play was anything at all. But right now, the power play is bringing them down. So I'm going to give the special teams a C. All right, moving on to the goalies. All right. Now, and mind you, it's two different types of conversations we're going to have about goalies. All right. I want to talk about performance on the ice between Urson and Hart in the first half, and then we'll get into the other side of the goalie situation. But through the first 45 games or so of the season, they were kind of doing a tandem. Urson was playing a lot more than a normal backup. And for whatever reason, there's been some theories out there that, Tortorella is not sure who his number one goalie was. A theory that the Flyers knew that this stuff with Hart was going to eventually hit home, and they wanted to be ready with someone to take over if they needed to. Bunch of theories. But as a tandem, they were 24, 13, and 6 with a 2.70 goals against average and a 9.02 save percentage, which is pretty solid for a tandem of goaltenders. And at one point, it was 1B, 1A, right? We were talking that way. Urson wasn't the backup. He was the other starter. First and foremost, but the goalies, Austin, how can you grade, or what do you want to say about the goalie performance, just that in the first half?
Honestly, I've been extremely impressed with Samuel Ersson. The way he's sort of picked it up from where he was at the start of the season, giving up about 4 to 6 goals a game. He's been playing incredibly well ever since then. Literally, if you look at the stats, both him and Carter Hart going into this point in the season have a record of 12, 9, and 3. So I mean, to be deadlocked as what we were considering 1A, 1B going into this point in the season, regardless of what's going on with Carter, it's extremely impressive. I mean, the save percentage isn't much different. The goals against average isn't much different. The numbers are fairly identical. I mean, you get slightly less minutes out of Urson right now total, but the same amount of quality starts in terms of playing in net. I'm a bit of a metrics guy for certain things. And like Nooms is saying here, his economy of movement has helped a lot in OT and shootouts and has helped shape this first half.
Yeah.
And like I said, especially the turnaround of like the first 2 weeks of the season where Urson looked like a walking disaster between the pipes. To have the turnaround that he's had this season has been extremely impressive and very indicative of this team's defensive style of play, helping him out and giving him a lot more confidence in net to be able to help become essentially now the de facto starter for this club.
Well, let's hold our tongue about the disaster in the beginning of the season, because since he took over as the starter, he's gone 0-4.
Yeah.
And he's not looked too good. He's given up 15 goals on 83 shots. And Pat, what Sam Ersson, will the real Sam Ersson please stand up? And who is that? And going forward with Sam Ersson as the guy, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's fun because it was almost at the beginning of the year, it was like a quarterback competition, except for that both quarterbacks were playing extremely well. And it's funny because, and I was enjoying it because when they were facing back-to-back games, you didn't have to worry about, who was in that. If you look back, almost say 5-6 years ago, whatever it was with Steve Mason and Neuwirth, it was just like you're chomping on your nails.
Damn.
Yeah. The reality of pain that we suffered, right? So
like the frozen Pete Peters, man. Let's go all the way back there to obscure goalies from the Flyer past, boy. Woo!
Yeah. So
we're going to be talking about Van Beesbrook.
Yeah,
but I just remember people always say that we can't decide on the goalie because they're 2 number 1 goalies, and then it turned out none of them were good enough. So, but when I looked at with these 2 guys, they were kind of, like I said, competing for that job, and it brought out the best of one another. But since Carter Hart is not around, and like I said, I don't know how much of an input that means in the locker room, but I just don't know. As Sam Ersson is ready to take that on when he first came on the scene last year, the small sample size we got of him late December, early January, he looked okay. He was again competing with some of the head teams in the West Coast, and then when he got out here, he was playing okay. But now, since he's on his own and he's the guy until further notice, he looks like he's lost in the sauce a little bit. So again, this is all on him now, and now he's got the weight of the shoulders to be that guy in the back. And Flyers dropping losing 4 or 5 straight. The month of January has not been pretty for this team. So and he's a big cause of that. So he's going to have to try and figure this out on the other side. So maybe this break did him some good. Maybe come to the realization, okay, Hart's not here on no more. I'm the guy, and hopefully he can get back to playing St. Marison style goaltending hockey.
Holy Christ, Mark LaForest and Rick St. Croix, man. Are we Jesus Christ.
Okay, so
Man.
amongst all the guys that do Clear the Ice, I'm the youngest one. I'm 34. Hearing these names is making me feel old.
Oh my God.
And that's saying something.
I mean, there's the guys who used to wear masks, not helmets or cages, but masks. It was the leather ones too. No, I mean, listen. So as far as the goalies go for me, unfortunately, I think this whole first half has been predicated with the other shoe that the Flyers thought was going to drop at some point with Carter Hart. And I think that they've been preparing that way. I think they were preparing that way heading into the season. That's why they drafted 2 back-to-back goalies in the second and the third round. That's why they went after Cal Peterson. That's why they signed Sam Ersson to another 2-year contract extension this past summer. Because I think this season they weren't prepared to speak about it, which of course I don't blame them. You're not going to bring this up if you don't have hardcore evidence or proof. But I think they were waiting for this shoe to drop. They knew that their goalie world was going to get turned into a turmoil, and we were going to go back to phase 1 or step 1 with goaltending development. And unfortunately, this scandal was not necessarily public news in the beginning of the year. Some people knew about it. Most people didn't know about it. It was pretty obscure. But now that it's hit like home, everybody's taken by surprise. But I don't think the Flyers were. I don't think they were taken by surprise at this at all. They had an idea this was going to happen, and they prepared themselves in rebuild-like mode to deal with the goalie situation. But as far as the goalie's performance, I thought it was pretty good. I was digging the 1A, 1B, knowing that, what Hart to me lacked laterally in his game and with his glove, that Ersson could make that up with his lateral movement and his glove play. They were good complements to each other. I felt confident when Ersson came in, spell Hart and vice versa. Heading into the back end of the season, I'm less confident with Ersson and Cal Peterson as you're into. But again, it kind of brings this rebuild for me back into focus. All that being said, Pat, what is your goaltending grade for the first half of the season?
First half, I'll go. Give me a B plus. I gotta be happy with it. I gotta be happy with what I saw. I mean, like you said, from the performance on the ice, you have to be happy. Again, a lot of these times, what's up, Mike? So again, how many times we've seen again back-to-back back-to-back games where they would have been completely flustered and not be able to compete. Well, since they had someone back there able to make some major stops, they were like I said, playing very, very good. And like I said, they kind of challenged one another to play better. And so to me, I thought they did just fine. So I'm going to give them a B plus.
Austin.
Yeah, I'm right around the same area with Pat. Even without Carter Hart, the numbers speak for themselves right now. Ersson has 3 shutouts on the season. Like I said, 14 quality starts in net, a 2.6 goals against average, a little bit lower than league average on save percentage, but there's still plenty of time for him to be able to fix that. I mean, he seems to give up a lot more than Carter Hart does. That Carter Hart did. I mean, Hart gave up a lot of soft goals where Ersson's were ones that you really couldn't stop as much, but with the solid defense that's been playing in front of him, hopefully everything starts to turn around and this team can maintain position and go into the end of the regular season looking at a playoff spot.
And I think I'm going to go with the B as well for their performance in the first half. Now, going forward into the second half, I think we have an incomplete because we don't know what the hell the situation is with the goalies. But yeah, B, solid play, above league average. Not what I thought we were getting with Hart. I was never a big Carter Hart guy. But he was, they were playing really well. All right, let's transition. But before we do that, remember, for those of you looking to get back in the swing of things, and the Flyers are coming back Tuesday, they'll be back in action. But on February 17th, the Stadium Series at MetLife Stadium, Flyers Devils. And if you want to go, there's no place other than Philly Sports Trips that you need to go check out and travel like the Crows. They got you covered for this game. They got you covered for the London tailgate only. The game is sold out, but the tailgate. Now, I don't know if that means you can still fly to London with them and then just do the tailgate. I imagine that they're not telling you to find your own way to London, but they don't provide. There's no tickets to the game left, but you can go to the tailgate, and then they got you covered this spring because we got baseball coming as well, which is a beautiful thing. So check out phillysportstrips.com for everything they have to offer. And then let's head into the big story, or not big story, but March 8th, 4 p.m. is that trade deadline. The highly anticipated. Are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be sellers? What are the Flyers going to do here? Let's talk about some of the names that have been kind of thrown in the mix there for the Flyers. Walker, Lautinen, Ristolainen, Sealer, Atkinson, and Stahl are the headlining names that a lot of teams are allegedly kicking the tires with in terms of trading. I want to ask 2 questions in this segment. Austin, real quick, buyers or sellers? Go.
I would like to say buyers, but I think they're going to sell.
Pat?
Buyers.
All right. I say sell. All right. Now, Austin, support your selling standpoint.
Well, there's going to be plenty of teams that have higher potential to make a legitimate Stanley Cup run than Philadelphia is going to have going into the tail end of this season. And we have a couple of pieces that can help solidify a team going forward. And we could get a decent return on the investment that we made in these guys, and it'll help us going forward with bringing in some more draft picks to help filter out the pipeline. A couple of guys with some veteran experience that could help this team going forward in the next year or two. Some expiring contracts we could probably take on with the cap base that we have. So I really feel like best worst case scenario is we start selling.
Pat, why are they buying?
Why? Because at the beginning of this year, I know they said in summer they were going to be rebuilding, but at the beginning of the year they said they will they'll let the fans know based on how the team plays by the trade deadline whether they're going to be buyers or sellers. Right now you're in the playoff realm, so to me this is what I think Danny Briere is going to show you a little bit what he can do in the front office. He's going to, make a little bit of a deal, try and get this team a little bit, get their feet wet in the playoff experience. It's been a long, long time since we saw that. So I think in that case, they're going to make a couple moves, get a couple of fill-in spots. And like I said, I think right by then they'll be a Bayern team because they're going to find someone who can fill that role, who can challenge Sam Harrison, who they might match up and get themselves a winger or so. And this way, like I said, I know it sounds like a pipe dream, but I definitely think Danny Briere is going to show you why he's taken on this role and get this team to the playoffs.
Stephen makes a very interesting point. Being a buyer doesn't mean you have to buy a lot. I agree, but I'm going to go sell, and this is the reason why I say it. First and foremost, guys, we all know this. When you're dealing with teams at the trade deadline, right? I mean, especially if you're selling, right? Let's talk the selling aspect because I'm going to give arguments to both. When you're selling teams in the trade deadline, you're selling players to the Lightnings, the Bruins, the Avalanches, the Hurricanes. You're selling to those teams, and they're not giving you prime real estate in return because they don't want to affect their cup run. I mean, they got a core of players they want to win a cup with. So it's prospects, it's draft picks, it's maybe some expiring contracts, whatever the case is. I don't necessarily think the Flyers are going to want to do business with teams like that because they don't serve the Flyers' needs unless it's some high talented prospect down in the AHL that these teams want to part ways with. But nobody on the existing NHL roster from those teams is coming over here of any value. You know what I'm saying? Now to buy, yeah, you are working with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. You are working with the Ottawa Senators, the Blue Jackets of the league, and you could maneuver some of that. But do we have assets that these teams would covet? I mean, these guys are all picking higher up in the draft than we are. They have more highly developed farm systems than we do. And I don't think they're going to take Nick. Why the hell would the Columbus Blue Jackets take Nick Sealer? It makes no sense. So I think the Flyers are kind of caught in between two worlds here. And I don't know what the best answer at the trade deadline is for them. I think be open to all aspects of this, be open to all offers, and kind of see where things lie. There is a need. Goaltending could be a need that they address if they are at March 8th. They are actually in a striking distance of a playoff spot or in the playoffs, and they want to take a veteran guy on just to see, hey, let's see how we do. Let's see how far we can get in this. Perhaps you look there, but any kind of long-term development of this team has to maintain and be what they have already started with draft picks and then working the phones in the summertime. That's my standpoint on that.
When you look at this roster top to bottom, 12 of the guys on this active roster are former first-round picks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just goes to show that Philadelphia has done a lot of accumulating of draft capital over the past, 10, 11 years. and just being able to get those guys to be able to eventually make their way up to the roster. What Mark Stahl was a 2005 first round pick. So I mean that sort of gives you a bit of a scope of some of the guys on this list here. But like him, Cam York, Scott Lawton, Travis Konechny, even Sean Couturier, Jamie Drysdale was a first round pick for Anaheim. So I mean, we have a lot of guys that were at one point or another considered high level talent. But with the scope of this team right now, having it still technically being considered a rebuilding year, there's the possibility of a couple of targets that guys are like, yeah, this guy could fit our mold, and we could end up getting a decent return for them. But it's just a matter of what are we truly willing to give up when the deadline comes around.
Now, with that being said, out of the list of players that I ran off, Walker, Lawton, Risto, Sealer, Atkinson, and Stahl, or anybody else that you might want to throw out there, who would you be willing to part ways with for a haul? Let's say it's a haul coming back, but we got to be legitimate here. You're not trading Nick Sealer for Drysdale and McDavid. That's not going to happen. But we got to be kind of realistic. But who out of that list or anybody else on this current Flyers team are you willing to move off of? I'll start with Pat.
So with me, like I said, if you're really willing to part ways, like I said, it depends. If you are going to stay the course and just be sellers, I'm willing to part ways from Travis Konechny. I'm willing to part ways from Travis Konechny to get a haul back. He just got to the All-Star game for the second time in his career. He could bring a caliber team of the Tampa Bays, the Torontos, and so forth. He could bring them a championship run. And I'm going to get a return, and we're going to stay the course of selling it because we see the bigger picture of Michkov coming back here. And, of course, I think they're going to be in good hands now, and they always believe for the next 8 years they trust Owen Tippett to be that guy. So I think they can keep an Owen Tippett run, build with him as your future guy, and adios amigos to Travis Konechny.
All right, Austin, what about you? Who are you willing on that list or any other player on this team to move off of?
Personally, Atkinson and Ristolainen predominantly. Atkinson hasn't been what was advertised when we acquired him initially. I mean, he had a decent start to his first year here, but hasn't really turned up the numbers too much. He's also 34, so it's kind of hard to hit that second stage again like he used to. Ristolainen, simply because of the fact that I feel like he doesn't fit the mold of a defensive team. He's considered more of an offensive defenseman, but I mean the numbers tend to lie sometimes. So I mean I just feel like Risto himself just doesn't fit this mold. I mean, granted, in terms of size, he's incredibly perfect for a defenseman, but
he's lost on his team. He doesn't have a role here. He doesn't have a role in this team.
Yeah, it feels like we're trying to stick a square peg in a round hole when it comes to Rasmus Ristolainen, and
that was a hard trade.
I would be totally fine with seeing him go, although I feel like we're kind of holding him because we don't want to end up kicking ourselves in the nards over it.
Well, it's a contract too. They signed him to that damn contract. I don't know if anybody wants to take that off their hands.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's going to want to take a middling defenseman making $5.5 million a year. And on top of that, we're still holding Ryan Ellis's contract, and he's played 4 total games in the 3 seasons that he's been here. So I mean,
we're talking positive today.
I mean, when it comes to like the players that I want to see go, like literally him, Ristolainen and Cam Atkinson both are over $5 million a year, and it's going to be tough to find somebody to want to take those contracts. So they're probably going to want to look at some of the guys that are under the $4 million mark, under the $3 million mark, and we have pretty much everyone else on the roster available when it comes to that. So it'll probably end up being a deal that we kind of don't want to have to make, but we're going to have to bite the bullet on and probably give up a piece that we don't want to have to be able to make something work. And at the end of the day, it depends on if you feel like you have a chance to really make a run in the playoffs. Do you make that move? And as you get to that trade deadline, those questions are going to be starting to get answered very quickly.
Yeah, you mentioned something too that I didn't bring up, Austin, and I'm glad you brought it up, is the salary cap situation. The Flyers are trying to shed some of that cap. And yeah, I mean, would I give up Ristolainen for a 4th, 5th round draft pick? Absolutely. Would I give him up for a 7th round pick? Absolutely. If you're going to take about 60% of his contract off my hands. I know I'm not going to get rid of it all, but you got to take some of it, most of it. And you give me a 6th round pick in return, let's make that happen today. Because I want to come down off the cap, because the cap's going to help us get better and bring in some superstar players potentially. Steve asked an interesting question. Would you do a Nordiques Lindros level deal if someone valued Michkov that much, whether that's this year, next year, or whatever? Austin, what about you? Would you pull off that type of deal with a player in Matt V. Michkov if someone came to your door looking to move?
I mean, I would definitely take heavy consideration because I mean, Michkov is a highly valued prospect in our system, and I feel like, you know, if we can get a very solid return that can help put us to another level, I would definitely pull the trigger on that. But it's a lot of it would at this point be a lot of speculation, so I don't really want to throw myself into that ring just yet. But I feel like if the right deal came along, I definitely would pull the trigger on it.
Pat?
Yeah. No, because again, this is I want to stay the course. I want to stay the course. I mean, listen, if someone's going to offer me their boardwalk, I'm going to negotiate it. But no, this is the whole reason is for Michkov. We're in this realm for Michkov and see what he can do. We hear he's the best player. He was the second best player in the draft on paper. I want to see that come here. I'm tired of. I want a legit superstar that I can watch for the next 10 years and not get bored of. I haven't seen a superstar in the orange and black since Lindros. I want that here, and I'm not making no moves.
I do it in a heartbeat. I mean,
really,
in a heartbeat. Listen, I get it. Michkov is a very high. I've been watching Michkov a lot this season. Now, I'm not taking that and kind of making a final assessment. He's not having a good season. He's playing for a horrible team in Sochi in the KHL. They stink. I mean, they are like the they're like the 1980s Atlanta Braves and the 19 they're just a horrible organization. He's been dealing with injury. He's been dealing with illness. He got benched for poor play a couple games ago because he wasn't playing defense. He might be just kind of giving up too because of his overall situation. He maybe doesn't want to be in the KHL anymore. As I said, I'm not making a final assessment, but he's struggling this year. And I don't know if it's because of the team he's playing on, but I definitely would listen. And if it's a Lindros level, like 8 for 1, 7 for 1, you know what? I'd be a fool not to really consider that and make a move off of that. So yeah, I would definitely listen.
Yeah, especially when it comes to defensemen, a lot of teams are looking for a very solid young defenseman to have in their pipeline because a lot of the guys that they're looking at right now, some of them are starting to fall out of their primes, and they need a guy to be able to fill that void when that time comes. And Michkov, even though the poor play right now is definitely something to be wondering about, just to be able to get a talent like Matt Michkov is going to be very solid for any team that happens.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna. It'd have to be like 7 for 1, 8 for 2, something like that for me to move off of him.
All right, boys. Offer is pretty big for that.
Yeah, because you're looking at a franchise-altering move for both parties. So now let's turn our attention now to the NHL and hockey in general, because over the weekend we had some things kind of break off. You mentioned the All-Star game up in Toronto. Gary Bettman spoke to the assembled media, and a couple of nuggets of news he dropped. The NHL will return to the Olympics starting in 2028. Definitely great news for that. The Olympics are that much better when you have the dream team aspect of every country involved. He also said the World Cup of Hockey will return as well. I'm sorry, the Olympics in 26, the World Cup of Hockey will return in 2028, and then every even year off Olympic year will be the World Cup of Hockey, and that's definitely. Wells Fargo was christened with the World Cup of Hockey back in 1996. So it's a great tournament. Love it. I'm happy it's back. They're also going to do a country series of some teams next year in lieu of an all-star game to kind of get you ready for that whole international thing starting at the Olympics in 2026. So big news for the NHL. Austin, are you excited that the NHL is back in the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey is back, or is that just whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely excited for it. I mean, it's a chance to showcase the talent this league has on a world scale and be able to check out talent from the rest of the world that is potentially considering coming into the NHL. So I mean, there's a lot of potential for growth for the league, growth for players that are outside of the league that want to try and make their way in, and to be able to see some of the guys on your own team represent their home countries. You have a chance for guys like Travis Konechny, Tyson Forrester, all those kinds of guys, like the younger guys that we have on this team, to be able to represent their home countries again. And I personally, I love that. I mean, I'm a huge soccer guy, so being able to see guys from your home clubs get called up to represent on the national level is always a good thing.
Absolutely. Pat, what's your take on international hockey coming back?
I mean, listen, you get to see more talent. More talent's good enough. It lets your eyeballs. We all like to play talent scout. And, our eyeballs. Again, we would like to see someone from other countries step up and see what they can do. And then I think it's going to be great. Again, more hockey's more love for me. So again, bring back the Winter Olympics with hockey and so forth. I can't wait. I can't wait to see, like Austin, just like MLS soccer. These guys go up and represent their countries and put a showcase on. Well, I can't wait to see that for the game of hockey. So I'm thrilled for it to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great, and it's all positive news. And for those of you who want to check out Gary Bettman's press conference from Toronto on Friday night, it's on YouTube. It's a great watch because not only did he address the international situation, he no holds barred, without holding anything back, addressed the Hockey Canada World Junior 2018 team scandal, answered every question within the limits of legality and knowledge, but he did not hold back. Nothing was scripted about it. Applause to Gary Bettman for the way he handled himself at that press conference, because he didn't have to. He didn't have to address any of that stuff, but he did. And it was about 40 minutes. They kept peppering him with questions. It was a great, great press conference. Go ahead and check it out on YouTube. It's a must watch for those of you who are interested in all that. And with that all being said, it's okay to talk about it now, I guess. It's official. Carter Hart has been charged with sexual assault. The London, Ontario Police Department will make a formal press conference tomorrow at some point, and they'll kind of announce some information. Hart has been non-rostered by the Flyers. It doesn't mean he's a free agent. I want to put that out there right now. Hart is not a free agent. He is still the property of the Flyers. He's just non-rostered. It means he doesn't count towards the game day roster or the overall roster. He still counts against the cap, and he's still property of the Flyers. But he is not, now he's not non-rostered. Austin, for good or for bad, as this thing develops, and now we're being told 2 years before trial may even start, good or for bad, innocent or guilty, has Carter Hart played his final game in Philadelphia?
If he hasn't, it's a shame for this team, for this organization. It's an absolute black eye on the organization if he ends up playing another game for the Philadelphia Flyers. It's a very serious allegation that's being pushed against him and the other 4 players that were involved. And at this point, non-rostering him was the smartest move that you can make. You can't really just outright him because of the hit that your team would take financially. So, I mean, doing what you did with him right now is the best way to do it. He's, because he's been formally charged now, he will be having to surrender his passport, so he won't be able to leave the country of Canada. So it would handcuff you a lot if you were to still keep him on your active roster. And just more than anything, just from what I've been reading about it, the heinous level of things that happened, more than anything, is the worst part about this. The person that was the victim of this whole thing, having to wait 6 years before anything even was formally announced. It was a very long, tedious investigation. Hats off to the investigators for gathering every single piece of information that they could for this. Like I said, if Carter Hart plays another game for the Flyers, it's a huge black eye on this organization.
Now, with that being said, Austin, and Pat, I will go to you here in a second with it all, but of course, the court of public opinion versus the actual criminal court system are two different things. You mentioned, people already have him, tried and executed, for God's sakes. All this is going to play out, and he could be found guilty in criminal, could be found not guilty criminally. But you mentioned the stigma of being involved in all this, being drugged down with this is something I don't think he'll ever shake. So if it's criminal that he plays another game for the Flyers, what is his potential playing in the NHL ever again?
Not great, if at all. If there's even a slight chance, I feel like the chance is never truly zero to be able to, especially if you're already considered an NHL level talent. Your chances are never truly zero. I mean, pardon my language, but Sean Avery was a piece of shit for a very long time, and he played a lot of games in the NHL. So I mean, I wouldn't put it past some organization to be like, yeah, why not? In like 2027.
Yeah.
Like it's a very strong possibility that could happen. And like you and Steve both said that the organization knew about this coming into the season, which is why they grabbed 2 goalies in the draft, which is why they gave Urson the extension that they gave him. It's just, overall, it's not only is it a black eye on the Flyers organization if he plays here again, but it's a black eye on the league if they let any of these guys set foot on NHL ice again.
It is. Gobbler, let's go to you now. Same questions. One, has he played his last game as a Flyer? And two, has he played his last game in the NHL?
Yes and yes. I mean, with the fact that again, and not just him, the crew that was involved on this. Listen, it's hard to turn away from this. Listen, for you to take down and step down and get it, whether you're found not guilty, still just to kind of go through the ringer of all this, and I think that just being involved around a situation like this, just kind of says no. And like Steve, I agree, here it's you're right. And listen, but for me, I think that they'll just part ways from him, and part ways from him to ever playing away from the NHL. And what NHL team is going to want to take a round with them? I mean, I guess a desperate team, it depends on the ice. I mean, a desperate team will take a shot with them, but I don't know. I kind of think that he's seen his last days as a NHL player.
Listen, I suggest you guys go back and listen to the interview that Gary Bettman did. It's amazing, and it's going to kind of paint some pictures. He confused a lot of people by saying the players were all free agents. They will be at the end of the season, but till June 30th, they're still on their contract from their teams. Now, you can cut a player for whatever reason. I could cut Flyers can cut anybody they want, but they got to give a valid reason. And if that valid reason is challenged, they can take it to the Players Association and fine or sue the team. So, let's keep all that in perspective too. But the Flyers will probably be better off at the end of June when he becomes a restricted free agent, not offering him that qualifying offer. July 16th comes and goes. They don't give him the written qualifying offer. He becomes UFA at that point anyway. But
to very quickly answer Steve's question, there were no charges filed against Patrick Kane after that 3-month investigation.
That's correct. I'm sorry, Steve. I forgot. I got sidetracked. But as far as my question about yes and yes, or is he going to play? He's done as a Flyer. He'll never play another game as a Philadelphia Flyer, innocent or guilty, because the timelines don't match up. Even if he's found innocent and the Flyers want to give him a shot, we don't have 2 years to wait. He's a free agent now. Are you going to sign him and then have to sign him again? I mean, that's as if the league doesn't do anything. So I think he's done with the Flyers. As far as the NHL goes, I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say yes to any of those players if they're found not guilty. Could be a path back for some of them somewhere. And you never know that. But as far as the Flyers go, I'll ask both of you this, and I'll go with Austin first. Say for all that Carter Hart memorabilia, all those jerseys out there, do the Flyers offer sort of a number change, name change policy in order to kind of maybe smooth some of this over with in terms of the fan base? Because the Flyers had no idea this was happening when they signed Carter Hart or drafted him back in 2016. Obviously, this hadn't happened yet, and then this thing didn't really come to light till about 2022. So I am not going to blame the Flyers for taking a flyer on this guy. He was a good goalie at the time. He's drafted appropriately, but do the Flyers offer some sort of reclamation project to the fans to kind of smooth this over, Austin?
I mean, I would like to think they do. I feel like you said, it would be a good way to sort of smooth over the tension that some of the fan base may have with the organization overall. And also it helps this team sort of move forward after everything that has happened. Like Al just said, Eagles offered nameplate changes with Wentz to Brown, so I feel like the Flyers should definitely, even if they let you do one of either the number or the name for free, and then you have to pay for the other change that you may happen to have to do. I'd be totally fine with that, because of the fact that doing a change overall for like both name and number would be a very, very hefty amount of money, because you think they charge by the letter and by the number. So if you can at least just get one for free and then maybe a small discount on the other, or something like 15-20%, it would be fine. I mean, more than anything, it's more about the organization wanting to essentially move on from the situation and get the focus back onto hockey as quickly as possible at this point.
Gobbler, what do you think? Think the Flyers offer something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Like, Matt, you were spot on earlier. Like they didn't know anything about it. They took a goaltender when this team needed a goaltender. They by X's and O's they drafted the right guy and they brought him up quickly. He made an impact on the team. Little did they know. So yeah, I think they'll smooth it over and handle business that way.
Yeah, maybe like Al says, maybe like a buyback. You take your stuff to the team store and they give you like a credit or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
That would work. Yeah. And then I don't know why would you do that, Steve? Why in the hell would you do that?
My favorite thing to still see is when you see somebody wearing a jersey and just has like duct tape all over it.
Yes. Yes.
Like someone will take like an old I don't know, like a Dante Stallworth jersey and cover up the 8 and then just put duct tape across the nameplate and just write a marker Hurts on it. Like,
yes.
Those are always my favorite things to see. Is just people are just like, I'm not going and getting it changed. They just
that costs too much. Tape. That's an extra $20. No way. Here, I'll just take tape and I'll just take out Wentz and I'll put Brown.
Man, I would have changed my number 8 Recchi to a Marsh jersey, even though he wasn't playing for the team anymore. What the hell, man, crazy. All right. All right. No, I love you, Steve. All right, boys. We got hockey. We got hockey on Tuesday night. The Flyers will return. Going to Florida to play the Florida Panthers. And we have some big news to announce to all the folks out there. Here on Clear the Ice, there's going to be a change to our programming format starting on Tuesday and moving into the way future. We are going to be paired up. That's right. You're going to get a dual partnership for games. Me and Pat will kick it off on Tuesday. On Thursday, it's me and Al. And then on Saturday, Mike and Austin. And we are going to go dual rounds or dual host, co-host for the rest of our lives here on the Clear the Ice show as we try to kind of change things up a little bit. So, fellas, let me ask you this. Are you looking forward to hosting with somebody else or being a co-host as we move into the second half, Austin? How do you feel this new little change-up is going to do for us?
I think it's going to be great, because I mean, as much as I love, being able to just like sit around by myself and like chat with the people that chime in. Sometimes I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels too fast going through the post game, and I'm like, oh crap, I've only gone for like 7.5 minutes, and I've given all the numbers that I could for this game, and the rest is just opinion. And at that point, being able to have someone else to be able to bounce back and forth with and have two different sides of a coin definitely helps out, especially with the comments that come in from everybody out there, guys like Steve and all those folks, which I very much appreciate everyone that chimes in whenever I'm on doing the post game, because it makes me feel like I'm not just talking at a wall most of the time. I do a lot of video game streaming on the side, so like I'm still trying to learn how to like work with just me, but doing the attacking third and starting up this baseball season, I'm going to be coming into the Fighting's final with you guys. So having that other person to be able to bounce information back and forth with is always a plus.
Yeah. Now, and you mentioned the Fighting's final. Like we don't got enough on our plate. We're going to fire that thing up here in a couple of weeks because for those of you who don't know, and I'll put this up here, Valentine's Day, pitchers and catchers report to Clearwater. So love is in the air, and so is baseball. But Gobbler, we're going to be going with the partnership. So there's going to be another opportunity for you and Mike to get together on off days other than Sunday. Are you looking forward to that as well?
Other than him? No, I'm kidding. Listen, you know what, though, all kidding aside, like me and Mike love, talking Flyers hockey. We love kicking off our show talking Flyers hockey. The people of the PM and the AM show, I'm surprised there's any fans, but they like us kicking off Flyers hockey talk. And again, it's nice to talk to the people, but to accommodate with someone with same kind of hot, Flyers hockey passion, whether it's a good win or bad loss, we still get to accommodate and we get to accommodate with each other and with the people. So again, it just brings more eyes, and I can't. I'm looking towards Tuesday night tagging up with my Northeast comrade here. Yeah, so let's get it rocking and rolling. I'm ready to go.
Yep. And I personally, so I'm a big old egomaniac. So I need the center of attention at all times. I'm not looking forward to working with somebody because I need to be the center of attention at all times. I don't share well. I don't play with them. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be great. We're going to be able to have a little bit more maybe discussion, keep the show going. And hopefully, as we get a playoff run kicked off here, it'll help us, kind of spur that on as well. So no, I'm looking forward to it as well. And yes, let me bring it back up here. So Tuesday night, we're back. Me and Pat for the Panthers, me and Al on Thursday for the Winnipeg Jets, and Austin and Mike on Saturday as they will recap the Kraken, and we'll get things going for the second half of the season. Before we say good night or good afternoon, I'm going to go around with your over. We talked offense, front office, defense, coaching, special teams, goalies. We talked it all. First half grades for the Flyers. We gave our individual grades. I want to know your overall grade. I'll start with Pat. What is your overall grade of the first half of the season for the Flyers?
I'll go A. A because they're ahead of schedule and no one saw this coming. I kind of said that they were going to be a sneaky good team. I thought they were going to hover around that 8 seed. I didn't know that they would be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. So I would go A for the Flyers.
Austin?
I'm going to go B simply because of the fact that the power play numbers aren't there. Everything else is above expectation, if not, slightly above expectation. And, if the power play numbers were better, this would propel them to an A, maybe even an A, like an A- A, somewhere in that range. But I feel like it's like a mid B, maybe a B- at best because of the fact that the power play numbers aren't there to help this team out.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead with Austin and Mike Lauro. I'm going to give the team a B as well. I think, there's a lot more positives right now than the Flyers than negatives. And that's something we couldn't say last year at this point. So I'm definitely going to give them a B. A lot of work to be done, but definitely a lot of good stuff that they've started with. So I'm going to give them a B. I'll never be able to do that, Steve. It's going to take a lot more than that. All right.
It'll take a lot more than working with me a couple of times.
Yeah, no.
Polarize you.
I don't know if I can be depolarized. Pat, give us some plugs. Where can the good people find you out there on the internet?
You guys can catch me right here, Edge of Philly Sports, Pat from Ambler. Check me out tonight, talking all across all the time with Gary, Matt, and Sean. Mike and Sean breaking down the sloppy, ugly Wings because they got a lot more problems also. So part of the Philly winter teams have gotten frostbite as of late. So you catch me there, beat reporting for the Philadelphia Wings, beat reporting with Philadelphia Union. Catch me and Austin this Thursday night getting you ready for a Union season as well. So can't wait to get that up and going.
Austin?
You can find me on Twitter, right? This hand, right down here at Austin_EOP. Thursday nights, 9 p.m. talking Philadelphia Union soccer with that doofus up there, and then Saturday mornings again with this guy and a couple of other guys, Art and Mike over on Devereaux Sports, talking classic video games, TV, movies, just entertainment in general. And then on my own, every once in a while on twitch.tv/Hambo26, playing video games, just being a goofball. So, I mean, lots of fun stuff that I do throughout the week. Definitely, wherever you can find me, definitely do so.
All right. And the answer to Steve's question is in the works. We are actually in negotiations as we speak. We've been going back and forth with some emails. Jim's a very busy guy. And we've narrowed it down to 2024, and now we just got to get a little bit closer to get him. No, we're working through it. It's coming. I promise you that, Steve. Jim Jackson will be back on my show on Monday nights. So, but yeah, you can find me there. You can find me on Clear the Ice. You can find me on the Fighting's Final and everywhere EOP. Make sure you're checking out the written stuff as well over there on the network or on the website. So, you got plenty of stuff for everybody.
Profile was very good.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, if you're in the need of workman's compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, criminal law, questions, comments, and concerns, Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300 is the man to call. And then after you're done with that and you're feeling good, head over to Sherry's Ticket Town and get yourself some great tickets on some hard-to-find sports, concert, or theater tickets. Great prices, no hidden fees. www.sherrystickets.com. Save that additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10. And folks, for all of us here at the Clear the Ice program, thank you for joining us here. It's the Flyers midseason check-in. Covered a lot of ground, talked about a lot of things. Overall, I think it's very optimistic where the Flyers are going. It was a very good first half, very surprising first half. Dealt with a lot of stuff, and then as they get this thing going, hopefully, yeah, let's make a playoff push. 32 games left, and we got to hear from on the Edge of Philly Sports. So we will talk to you on Tuesday night when we come back for Flyers and Panthers. For the Gobbler and Austin, I'm your boy Matty B. And in the immortal words of Mr. Gene Hart, sorry about that. Good night and good hockey.